If we find the flood tunnel, we follow that up, it should be a direct line to X marks the spot. And that's my hope, that ultimately we solve this mystery for all the people that have come before us looking for answers.
Something far greater was uncovered next. The scan revealed a perfectly symmetrical rectangular structure, its walls appearing to be made of reinforced stone. This wasn't a natural formation or the result of a collapse. It was clearly man-made, built with purpose, designed to endure for centuries while protecting something of extraordinary importance. In that moment, Rick realized this was no ordinary lead or speculative theory. This was real. And if what lay beneath was genuine, it wouldn't just be a treasure. It could rank among the most significant discoveries in North American history. The real key was understanding the engineering behind it. Whoever created this chamber didn't simply dig a hole and bury valuables. They constructed a highly advanced system, complete with drainage, waterproofing, and structural reinforcements, capable of surviving for generations. Such a project would have required immense resources, precision, and, most importantly, a compelling reason. No one invests that level of effort unless what they're hiding is incredibly valuable. When Rick and his team brought in structural engineers, archaeologists, and financial analysts, their conclusion came quickly. Even if the chamber contained only part of what history suggested, its value today could exceed $180 million. This estimate wasn't guesswork. It was based on the vault's size, historical context, and a crucial clue: vast amounts of wealth that disappeared from records in the late 1600s. 3 major fortunes were completely unaccounted for. The first was linked to the Knights Templar, whose immense treasury vanished after their downfall in 1307. The second was tied to the lost Spanish treasure fleet of 1715, a shipment so valuable it would be worth billions today. The third, and perhaps most mysterious, was connected to Sir Francis Bacon, who was rumored to have hidden priceless manuscripts, royal artifacts, and unrecovered gold before his death. At first, these connections seemed too far-fetched, but when the team compared the chamber's design to known Templar construction methods, everything shifted. The similarities were striking: arched ceilings, reinforced stone walls, and an advanced drainage system capable of keeping water out for centuries. This wasn't the work of pirates or smugglers. It pointed to a highly organized group with significant resources, advanced knowledge, and a strong motive to keep their secret hidden. As the investigation continued, Rick turned to historical records, uncovering details that reshaped the story. William Kidd, one of history's most infamous pirates, had documented ties to the region, with his final movements placing him near Oak Island. But he likely wasn't acting alone. New evidence suggested a larger network, one involving European nobility, former Knights Templar, and early Freemasons who may have inherited the secrets of the order. The mystery was no longer isolated. It was part of something much bigger. Further research revealed that several high-ranking Freemasons made unexplained voyages to Nova Scotia in the late 1600s. Their records were vague, almost intentionally so. Yet the timing matched reports of unusual activity on Oak Island: ships arriving at night, crews working in silence, and large shipments of timber, stone, and iron being delivered to a place with no clear settlement or purpose. This was clearly planned, organized, and secretive. To better understand these connections, Rick consulted historian Dr. Aaron Taylor, an expert in Templar and Masonic history. His insights were pivotal. He explained that after the Templars were disbanded, many fled to Scotland, where they became part of early Masonic lodges. Over time, these lodges preserved Templar knowledge, rituals, and possibly their hidden wealth. By the 1600s, as persecution spread across Europe, these groups would have needed a secure, remote location to safeguard their assets. Oak Island fit perfectly. Isolated, defensible, accessible by sea, yet hidden enough to avoid attention. But perhaps the most compelling evidence wasn't the location. It was the engineering. The construction methods found in the Money Pit and the newly discovered vault closely resembled known Templar techniques: coconut fiber used for drainage, complex flood tunnels, and precisely cut stone masonry. These weren't random choices. They were signatures of builders with centuries of experience, creating a system designed to protect something priceless indefinitely. Then came a major breakthrough. Dr. Taylor introduced a map that had been hidden in a private collection for decades. When he revealed it, everything changed. Oak Island was marked with symbols identical to those used by the Knights Templar, 3 crosses arranged in a perfect triangle. This matched exactly what Rick's ground-penetrating radar had detected underground. At that point, coincidence no longer seemed possible. This was intentional, carefully planned, and very real. Finally, physical evidence began to emerge. With a metal detector, Gary Drayton scanned the area above the suspected vault. Almost immediately, the readings surged. Gold, silver, iron, and copper signals layered tightly within one concentrated zone. This wasn't scattered debris, it was structured and deliberate. Then, the detector gave an intense signal at one specific spot. Gary stopped, marked the location, and called Rick over. This was the moment they had been waiting for. Before committing to a full excavation, Rick made a careful decision. He authorized a test bore, a narrow drill designed to sample what lay below without disturbing the chamber itself. The drilling team moved into position and began their descent. At 50 feet, the core sample revealed compact clay mixed with fragments of wood. At 100 feet, they found charcoal and ash, clear evidence of the same engineered burn layers discovered elsewhere on the island. Then, at 130 feet, the drill suddenly slowed. Something was there. The team immediately stopped and carefully extracted the sample. As it emerged, the site fell silent. Embedded in the clay was a coin. Not just any coin, but a gold one. It was Portuguese, dated 1640, and remarkably well preserved, having been sealed for centuries in a naturally waterproof environment. Rick held the coin up to the light, and in that moment, everything changed. This was no longer theory or speculation. There was real treasure beneath Oak Island. And if a single coin could survive in such pristine condition, what else might be hidden inside that sealed vault? Doubt vanished. Hesitation disappeared. They were no longer chasing legends. They were uncovering history. Recognizing the importance of the moment, Marty Lagina arrived on site. He had come specifically to examine the findings. As he reviewed the coin, the radar data, and the engineering reports, he focused on a deeper question. With his engineering background, one issue stood out. How could a structure this advanced have been built at such depth using 17th century technology? According to historian Dr. Aaron Taylor, the answer was both simple and unsettling. They didn't do it alone. Constructing something like this would have required a large workforce, months of labor, and significant financial backing. Whoever built the vault had not only knowledge, but also power, resources, and authority. But Marty raised an even bigger question. If the vault was built in the 1600s, why had it never been recovered? Why would something so valuable remain hidden for centuries? Dr. Taylor offered a theory. This wasn't meant to be temporary storage. It was intended to be permanent. Perhaps those who buried it planned to return, but never could. War, disease, or political turmoil might have erased them from history. Or, more intriguingly, maybe they never intended to return at all. What if this wasn't just a vault? What if it was a message, a time capsule deliberately left behind for the future? That idea shifted everything. Rick made the call. They were moving forward. But instead of using standard excavation methods, they would deploy a custom-designed caisson, engineered to reach the chamber safely without collapsing it. The risks were enormous. The cost was even higher, and there were no guarantees. But walking away was no longer an option. The evidence was too strong, and the stakes were too high. Within 48 hours, Vanessa Lucido and her ROC equipment team arrived on site with specialized drilling rigs, reinforced casing systems, and a crew experienced in deep, high-risk excavation. As soon as Vanessa reviewed the plans, she recognized the danger. The water table was high, the soil was unstable, and most critically, they were attempting to access a chamber that had been sealed for over 300 years. One mistake could cause the vault to collapse or flood, destroying whatever had survived for centuries. Vanessa proposed a precise 3-stage plan. First, drill relief wells around the vault to control water pressure. Second, install reinforced casings to stabilize the shaft during descent. Third, use a narrow drill to carefully access the chamber, allowing cameras and sensors to go in before any physical entry. No shortcuts, no unnecessary risks. The team agreed. This had to be done perfectly. Work began immediately. The relief wells performed exactly as expected, intercepting hidden water channels and redirecting the flow away from the main site. Stabilizing the soil proved more challenging, but after 3 days of continuous effort, the ground was secure. Everything was ready. The descent began. The main shaft cut through the earth with precision. At 120 feet, they encountered dense, waterlogged clay, difficult but anticipated. At 150 feet, the drill struck timber, ancient oak beams, hand-cut and perfectly aligned. They had been deliberately charred, a medieval technique used to create a durable, sealed barrier. Rick could feel it. They were getting close. This wasn't random. It was carefully engineered. Then, at 170 feet, progress slowed again. The drill met solid resistance. Massive limestone blocks cut so precisely that not even a blade could fit between them. The operation paused. This wasn't just a chamber. It was a fortress, built to withstand time, water, and intrusion. The level of engineering was unlike anything previously found on Oak Island. Vanessa ordered a core sample. When the limestone was brought up, the entire team fell silent. Embedded within the stone was metal, a fragment stamped with a symbol, a cross. Not just any cross, but one resembling the mark associated with the Knights Templar. Rick held it in his hands, the weight of history pressing into that moment. This was no longer speculation. It was proof. The chamber was real, and whoever built it had left unmistakable clues behind. The atmosphere on site became electric. Everyone present knew they were on the verge of a discovery the world had waited centuries to see. Rick called for a brief pause, not out of hesitation, but out of respect. He wanted the team to understand the significance of what they were about to uncover. This wasn't just about treasure. It was about validating centuries of theories, honoring those who had pursued the mystery before them, and potentially rewriting history. Then the drill resumed, slowly, carefully, pushing deeper into the unknown. At 180 feet, everything changed. The resistance suddenly gave way. The team leaned in, holding their breath. And then they saw it. The vault. Grainy but unmistakable. Wooden chests lined the walls, reinforced with iron bands. At the center sat a larger, ornate container, rectangular, carved, and covered in symbols. Scattered across the stone floor were artifacts, coins, chalices, and relics, catching the faint light and reflecting it back like fragments of a long-lost past. Rick leaned in closer, barely breathing. This was it, no longer legend or myth, but something real, tangible, and far beyond anything they had imagined. Beside him, Gary Drayton pointed at the screen, breaking the silence. If even half of those chests contained precious metals, their value would be enormous. As the camera moved deeper into the chamber, more details came into view. On the far wall, there were inscriptions and symbols, markings that matched those associated with the Knights Templar. Dates appeared, 1694, 1698. Then something else caught everyone off guard. Dr. Aaron Taylor froze as he recognized a coat of arms, a French noble family historically linked to the Templars, one that had mysteriously disappeared in the late 1600s. At that point, the estimates were no longer speculation. Financial experts began recalculating in real time. Based on what was visible alone, the value had already surpassed $180 million. And if the manuscripts and relics were authentic, the total worth could exceed $500 million. One chest appeared to be filled entirely with gold coins. Another held intricate jewelry and ceremonial artifacts. But it was the central container that drew everyone's attention. Larger, heavier, and deliberately placed, it clearly held something of greater importance. Whatever was inside wasn't just valuable, it was significant. The implications went far beyond wealth. This discovery had the potential to reshape history itself. It hinted at the possibility that the Knights Templar may have reached North America long before Columbus. It suggested that Oak Island was not just a mystery, but a carefully chosen site designed to safeguard knowledge and riches considered too important, or too dangerous, to remain in Europe. Ideas once dismissed as fantasy now stood on the verge of confirmation. Rick stood silently, eyes fixed on the screen. Moments later, Marty joined him. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. For years, the island had challenged them, flooding their efforts, collapsing their tunnels, and resisting every attempt to uncover its secrets. But now, it had finally revealed something in return. Its greatest secret. And yet, this was only the beginning. Discovering the vault was one thing. Recovering its contents without damaging them was another challenge entirely. Every artifact would need careful preservation. Every detail would need to be documented. The world would be watching. Just as the camera feed began to fade, something else appeared. Something almost overlooked. On the far wall, hidden in shadow, was an inscription carved deep into the stone. Ancient and deliberate, written in Latin. Rick immediately ordered a translation. When the words came through, a chill spread across the site. Here lies the truth they sought to destroy. Silence followed, heavier than anything before. What truth? What knowledge had been buried so deeply, protected so fiercely, that it required centuries of secrecy? Rick didn't have the answer. Not yet. But one thing was clear. This discovery wasn't the end of the mystery. It was the beginning of something much bigger. The treasure, estimated at $180 million, was real. But whatever secret it concealed could be far more valuable. The team quickly shifted into planning mode, but caution came first. Vanessa Lucido made it clear that extracting artifacts from a chamber sealed for over 300 years would be extremely risky. The moment the vault was exposed, air and moisture could begin destroying its contents. Documents might crumble. Textiles could disintegrate. Even metals could corrode. They would need conservation specialists, climate-controlled containment, and possibly even a temporary clean room built on site to preserve everything properly. Still, the biggest question remained unanswered. What truth was so dangerous that it had been hidden beneath layers of engineering, secrecy, and time? Rick didn't know yet, but he understood one thing. This was no longer just about treasure. It was about uncovering a lost piece of history, something that someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to erase. And that was now coming back into the light. Had Rick just uncovered one of the greatest hidden fortunes in history? What else lies inside that chamber? And what truth were its creators so desperate to protect? The excavation continues, and with each passing day, the mystery only deepens. Tell us what you think. Please subscribe to the Timefold channel, and don't forget to like.